Wake up, Mark.
What?
Uh-oh, Mark.
What?
Oh, we have some echo, Mark, in your studio. You got to turn your speaker down. Yow. No, it's gone. We're good. We're good.
Okay.
All right.
Sound is loud
Okay.
and clear. Loud. It's loud and clear.
Yeah, same here. Very good. Well, yeah. Well, that's good. We spent a little time on tech, and it went over into showtime a little bit, guys. But I think uh, we got some sound issues behind us, and I'm glad to do that. Anyway, well, thanks for being patient, and I'm so glad. I'm really excited to get back together with Mark after 2 weeks. This is so amazing time to be alive, is it not?
May you live in interesting times. How many people have said that? It's very interesting. I imagine a lot of people feel it the same way. But this seems, I don't know if I've ever talked about transhumanism and actually this much of a change of life before. At least I don't know if any generation. I mean, there's been science fiction books, but these days seem to be particularly interesting. uh,
What makes you say transhumanism just right off the bat tonight?
well, I say it because it's just one of those more extreme examples. If you look at living in the future books of the 1930s and 40s and 50s, it'd be like the Jetsons and live in a little pod, maybe flying cars,
Yeah, I like
all
that.
things
Actually,
which seem
I'm
rather pragmatic,
I'm
but
in. I want to be a Jetson.
and actually a whole lot less scary than, oh, we're going to hook your brain up to the neural net and you're going to attain some type of immortality, and we're going to be able to have nanobots going into people's bodies and rebuilding them, and all of these other and more extreme. You're going to be able to dedicate unused brain cycles to the grid to be able to do things like, whoa. Yeah, I thought flying cars were scary. Matter of fact, I still think flying cars are scary, not because flying is scary, but because drivers are scary. But this is just a whole nother level, John. And it's coming at us everywhere at the same time. All sorts of sovereignty is being questioned. The family organization is being questioned. Where babies come from are being questioned. It's things just need to slow down. I long for the days of being 8 years old and just organizing my stamp collection with my grandfather. Things are just too complicated right now, man. They're too complicated, and I don't know how to stop it other than to try to actually engage. Which is that making it worse, John? Is it to engage and to try to maybe provide some transparency, only feeding it, or is that going to be helpful?
I
I
think
don't know.
I think the answer is as long as as everybody understands that this is a process, that this is not we're not here like your high school history teacher telling you, on a certain day so and so, was beheaded by the French Revolution, or you have to know the kings of England in order categorical. You have to memorize this and this to pass the test. And
Mm-hmm.
here's what you need to know. And that's what the news people are doing now. Here's what we know. Here's what you
Yeah.
need to know. Here's what you need to know today. Here's your little bit of terror, and here's your little bit of hope. And we're going to push you out the door and get in that car and drive that commute and get that cup of coffee and get started on your job because you got a lot to do today.
Did you read Harry the Greek's brassballs.blog article yesterday? It's news that's been repeated elsewhere,
I,
but
which
heard
one
it from
is
him
it?
first. The Department of Homeland Security having a 6 month statement program. I don't know what the right word is, where they will be fighting fake news. Fake news, as fake news is effectively terrorism right now in the homeland.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that is rather extreme. And that's where we are right now. I
Plus,
don't know if they just want to rattle people, but either way, whether they mean it or whether they're just doing it to rattle people, I believe that those are both completely unacceptable.
and put on top of that this Ned Price character from the State Department, I mean, it's just gone ballistic. Okay, thank heavens that this is getting some press and this is getting some coverage in social media and elsewhere, because what he was doing was laying out a kind of a marker that's saying from here on out, what we say is what you believe.
Yes.
What we say
Hmm.
is what you are going to believe. And if you want to know why we said that because we are the intelligence officers and we know. And that's it. You don't get to know any more details. And that, see, that was never accepted by our press until recently, because
Yes.
somehow it has all gotten, there's no more Sarah McClendons. There's that whoever that reporter was, I should credit his name, but thank goodness that somebody's got some, some claws into these people and trying to shake them up to get the truth. But beyond that, just the cover story, what we're seeing, I think, and Harley Schlanger is right about this, is a real watershed in the world, and in that the Western financial system that depends upon NATO as the enforcement arm, right? Uh, to make sure that not only do they get their money, but they keep on taking more and more other parts of the world to get their money too. This NATO thing has run into an impassable barrier, and that is Russia. And between Russia and China, there is now a new treaty that I understand from Harley is going to have them cooperating. And if this Belt and Road thing goes through, then that is the end of the Western financial system. Because here's what's really in play, and I'm just learning this now, but here's what's really in play.
What's up?
Russia and China could provide anything that Europe needs. Europe does not need the United States. Europe has not needed the United States for a long time. So what we're doing is we are over there enforcing our necessity to them. There we just keep on saying, hey, look, there's going to be a war in here. You got to have us there. You got to have special forces here, and you got to do this, and you got to buy these rockets, and you got to buy these missiles, and uh, and they've gotten right now to this real watershed, and I hope he's right, but I also am very concerned about it because our Western financial system is, that's where we all live.
Well, it is. Is that where we live? Well, it matters. So I've always wondered. I mean, where does China fall in this? Are they with the Western financial system, as many said they are, or are they not? Are they willing to go their own route? Excuse me. And I don't know what the answer to that is. I mean, I suspect Russia is so much, but where China's going, these are really not my. I don't mean to disappoint the audience, but I don't. These big geopolitical issues like this, I can't wrap my mind around them, man. Oh, this country does this, and because of this dictator and this policy, and actually, I only know the stuff that I research. I actually feel completely unprepared to say that I know where China's going in the future with respect to their position in the World Bank and world finance. I know Harley Schlanger is very well articulate on the matter, and yes, all of the trade routes. It used to be completely impossible or inconceivable to transport goods over Asia. You
Yeah.
just couldn't do it. It's the Caucasus. It got in the middle of everything. The Himalayas, it's just not conducive. So that's changing right now. It's slowly but surely it's changing. In addition to that, with icebreaker technology and so on, going around Russia, north of Russia, is much easier than it used to be. And the world has gone from what ocean centric, if you will. What would you say that's the British Empire way,
Yes, that's right.
to
Yeah.
land centric. And this kind of does something funny where the Americas are somewhat, we're sort of not tethered to one side or the other, because we have water and we have a lot of our own land. And I know historically we're connected politically anyways to the NATO and the British Empire, but we have a certain amount of diversity. So we're kind of, and we're only what, I think 12% of the world's population, North and South America combined. Relatively speaking, it's not a big percentage of the world's population. We have a lot of resources, a high ratio of resources to capita, but you know, we're not really the action center anymore. It really is more, you know, Asia and Europe now is going to be dependent upon this, and I hope they're ready for it. I hope they're ready. I don't know if they realize long term demographically the challenge they're going to have. We'll see. I know the hot spots is still Ukraine, but going back to a couple of things that you said earlier. The reign of terror as we are right now, and this statement from this Department of Homeland Security that they want to be the truth sayer for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't agree with their position on things, you're now a terrorist. So I don't know how to fight that, and I don't see a whole lot of pushback in Washington, D.C. This is not sustainable. It could result in people being persecuted, winding up in jail. There could be serious persecutions because of this. But when I say it's not sustainable, I don't mean like in a 6-month range. I mean like over 30 years. This will not be sustained. It's transient, and that came out yesterday. There were a couple of other shows that actually covered it quite well because it is so terrifying. But you actually sent me some emails this week that we can actually get into.
Let me just make a couple points about what you said, and then I'd love to get into those emails. But, yeah, and first of all, bravo, because you really are getting a very good grasp of what I'm trying to share with people, and that's all we can do is share. So I don't know where you got it from, but you are getting the general idea of what's going on, and yes, the one layer I'd put on top of that is the reason there has never been a successful economy from China through to Europe, through the old Silk Road ever since, Marco Polo days. The reason that it's never happened is not because of the difficulty of crossing mountains or the distance or the stretches of desert or any of that stuff. It's because the British Empire has been actively causing war after war after war after war in all of those territories and countries. So they broke India up into Hindu and Muslim. They broke, going back, they used that divide and conquer thing, and this is one of the big themes of history that has not yet really been taught. But if you think about it, that's what's really been going on now, is that the same financial, they recognize that if Europe starts getting most of its trade from Asia or from Russia, then that's the end of Wall Street's control over the economy of the world. That is what's at stake right now. So, yeah.
But the World Bank still has a say. Maybe, I don't know if Wall Street and the World Bank are how synonymous those two things are. Again, I'd have to think a little bit more about that, but
it's very.
The World Bank has control over most countries are participants in that, correct? Except I know there's been questions about Russia's banking system and how that connects to the rest of the global banks, and there was a couple of other countries. I think Venezuela might be one. North Korea, of course. Basically, every country that's considered to be a terrorist nation, coincidentally, has leaning towards supporting their own banking systems.
You mentioned the World Bank in some of your reporting this past week in connection with the financing of big pharma.
Yeah.
Remind us about that.
It is it's a big hypothesis. Okay. Um, you can only have so much money before it effectively doesn't mean anything anymore. And we know that there's a high amount of wealth in the world consolidated into the hands of very few people, right? And they control or own most of the banks. Problem is the banks own the printers, so the banks can just add wealth at any time. But you can only add so much before it just becomes stupid. And if you go overboard, you're actually going to. I mean, what are you going to do? Are all the rich people just going to be like, we're buying all of Asia. Everyone needs to get out and move to Puerto Rico. You can't do that. So there's practical limits as to how much wealth you can actually wield and exercise in the world. So these clubs, these groups, I think have said, okay, so what the heck are we going to do? Well, how do we invest in the future? How do we invest in something for our kids? And I think that they've looked at, life extension as probably one of the biggest ones, and anything getting involved with, advancing our knowledge of genetics, not necessarily eugenics. Although, trust me, there's no love for a lot of people.
But transhumanism.
Transhumanism, life extension, life improvement, increasing IQ, increasing output, increasing length of life, providing competitive advantages. All of these things it may be satisfying some need to know that you're doing good. Like, because of our investment in this technology, humans will now be able to build a spaceship, right? And they'll be able to put themselves into somewhat of a deep sleep and travel to other planets or something like that, which sounds cool, but honestly, I don't think that's going to make anyone any happier than we are right now.
Remember when we were going to have these 3D theaters? There was going to be all of this awesome stuff about 20 years ago. I remember when they started National Harbor, and they were going to have this multi-dimensional experience, and
Mhm.
the holodeck on Star Trek, where they go into the holodeck and they have this hologram that puts them
Mhm.
in a different time space or something. And yeah, I think that's where they want us to go. They want us to sit in little cubicles connected to the great computer and
Yeah.
be having these experiences, as we to entertain ourselves, when we're resting from our day in the salt mines or whatever they've assigned us to.
So I suspect that since this effectively breakaway wealth elite class, it's not a judgment statement. I don't have particularly fond feelings, but it's not a judgment statement. What are you going to do with all that money? You own and control the banks effectively, right? Even though it may not, it's hard to find the money trail. It is what it is. What do you do? Well, I suspect that instruments such as the World Bank is used to work with nations, to work with their health ministries in particular, and to negotiate terms on which those nations can have favorable status and support from global banks. And I hypothesize that one of those things, one of the most important things that nations can do, is to ensure that their citizens will be available for trials of new medicine and new ways of being able to understand the human genome, test things, mine for data, and advance that knowledge. And it really struck me. It's a pattern I first noticed on a November 2001 Carnegie Foundation photo, where it was Fauci, Bill Gates Sr., a bunch of very important people, or well-known people anyways, from the media, a bunch of individuals that are the top donors to genetic research institutions within the United States, like the Diamond Foundation in New York, and the president of the World Bank. And I said, so, well, maybe they're just they really concerned, they really are worried about children in poor nations. And that's why they say, we're the World Bank. We got so much freaking money. We just want to follow around the vaccine companies to be sure that the poor kids are healthy. But you start looking and you're like, man, they are really, I can't remember the World Banker ever there being like, hey, have a free salad. Here's some Flintstone vitamins. No, it's always next to the vaccine companies. And the more you look, the more of a pattern you see of the top levels of banking are always side by side with the health institutes and the pharma companies. And then I started looking at the leaders of the health institutes within the United States. And you think health institutes should be run by, obviously, people who understand health, right? Understand you wouldn't. I don't know.
I'm with you. I'm in the Mark column on this.
Know something about human health, right? And
Yeah.
many of them are scientists, which I never thought much of. But then it became clear that most of them, while they may be scientists, they're not physicians. They're all geneticists. And then they seem to have a lot of backing and favorable support from banking. And I think that there is a heavy, heavy hand of international banking in health institutes, in the study of infectious diseases, in responses to infectious diseases, bioterrorism, and everything else. And it appears as though it is connected with a desire to ensure that citizens of a certain country will play ball. The only way this research, this field of genetic research is going to advance is if large numbers of people are signed up for almost maybe even multiple generations of detailed monitoring of everything in their life. And I mean everything as much as possible, as well as control over maybe even their food supply, and most preferably the medicine that they take. And I think this is why these health institutes right now seem to wield almost more power than anyone else. I would go so far as to say that I think what backs the U.S. dollar right now is a very deep as a promise that Americans will be available for anything that needs to be tested. We have the most aggressive childhood jabination schedule in the world by far. And I think the more that's guaranteed, the more our dollar will be supported. There's lots of gold and oil in the world, but the one thing that's in short supply are humans that are available for medical experimentation. That is literally the most valuable resource in the world. So while we focus on trade routes and all of that stuff is definitely real, there's another dimension to the world, which is again, is securing people to be available for medical experimentation. And if you say no, your currency is probably going to go belly up, because that means you're not playing ball. You're not playing ball. You're not satisfying the needs of a bigger vision that some people have who simply have a unfathomable control over wealth in the world. But at the same time, you can only do so much. You can only buy so many yachts. If one person come out and says, you know what, I individually own 80% of the money in the world, he's going to get killed. You can't do that. So there actually is a practical limits as to how much money you can publicly wield. And by the way, I think that the whatever it is, the Forbes 500 is mostly a list of the 500 people they want you to think are the richest people. They're probably not actually. I think they're all just paid as decoys. Bezos, guess what, Bezos? You got $1 billion. You can spend it however you want. You got to tell everyone you're worth $200 billion, though. And if you ever spill the beans, you're winding up on the curb. You're going to be more than enough wealthy. And that is protection for probably some other Joe who happens to have $200 trillion, whatever it is, something like that. It's just a nice decoy. You don't win anything if everyone knows you're the richest person. It's actually a liability. So why announce it? It could be my neighbor for all I know. I mean, who knows who the wealthiest people are? But that said, it's an evolving theory, John, and this this fanatic push for new medicines, and it's not just that. It is the focus of all these new medical technologies, combined with an absolute non-concern over so many other health issues, whether it be a drug dependency, obesity, just general levels of happiness, sleeping well, nutrition. All of these other things should get a little bit more daylight, but they actually don't care. You almost call up something bad if you bring that up and say, well, what about this over here? No, not allowed anymore. So it just got me thinking, and as things go on, it does seem as though there's a possibility that this could be the case. Human lives are worth an awful lot of money. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so that email you sent, you talked about, it was information you referred to me about Dr. Peter McCullough.
Tell you what, let me put it up on the screen so we can talk through it together. I sent Mark an email because I wanted to let him know that there was a source that was giving a heads up, a warning about Dr. Peter McCullough, and I hate to see that, but at the same time, I think it's something I wanted Mark to see. And so he said, "Well, let's talk about it on the show tonight." So let me see if I can work the share button here and get that.
So Peter McCullough is a physician, a well-known. I think cardiology is one of his specialties. He has been on the Senator Ron Johnson event recently. There is a picture of Dr. Peter McCullough. I don't know where he works out of, but he has he has been heavily focused on treatment of people who are dealing with COVID-19. And he has had certain positions. You can imagine what they are. On the therapies, on the immunizations for this. Again, he was on that Senator Ron Johnson event. He is frequently in the vicinity of Dr. Robert Malone. I like the way Peter McCullough presents information. I find him to be pretty well balanced, pretty analytical. I've had some good friends who've told me, Mark, you got to be careful. And I'm like, I understand what you're trying to say, but I didn't actually dig in. And this is a good long post here. One thing I noticed about Peter McCullough is there was a presentation of his that went viral a few months ago. I think it was back in October or November. And he was very much in favor of immunization methods, but not necessarily the ones that are available for the current pandemic. And I said, okay, well, look, it is what it is. I don't agree with him on that necessarily, but I'm not looking for someone that I agree with on everything. But as long as he seems to be a straight shooter and he's bringing some good information forth about this, and as long as he wasn't complicit in causing the current situation, that's a big one right there. I'd like to, speak favorably about him. But this brings up some potential conflicts of interests, not only in favor of other immunization methods for other diseases, but receiving a lot of money. But a lot of physicians receive a little bit of money here and there, right? How many pill pushers come into their offices? Like, here, try some of this, try some of that, and giving out T-shirts and maybe funds and all this other stuff. I'd have to dig into a little bit more there, but he has been involved with Gavi, the Microsoft research efforts. So does that mean he's a bad actor in this? I think it's important to remain open-minded. I've up until now, and I still am at this situation, although I haven't absorbed everything in this awesome document that you passed over yet. I'm still maintaining a favorable thing, but it's different than the position I have on the all other person, which is Dr. Robert Malone, who I actually believe played a knowing and active role in ensuring that we wound up in the situation that we are in right now. And while it's nice every once in a while that the person who did the kidnapping slides a package of peanuts under the door so I don't starve to death, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to start thinking that they're the good guy. And I kind of see that as what Mr. Malone is doing right now, and I'm just not going to go there. The thing is, did Peter McCullough also play an active role in and leading to the situation we're in right now? I don't know. I haven't investigated yet, but John, this was something I was going to talk about tonight. Well, or at least highlight this, and that is that our biggest challenge is always is being willing to be critical of the people that we feel as though are working with us in our particular pursuits. It's really hard to believe that the people that are around you and that you put your trust in have fooled you. It's really hard to do that, and that just happens with people on both sides of the political aisle.
That especially in the case of the pandemic, because people they trust their medical system. They've been going to the same, in many cases, their whole family's been going to the same medical group, for their whole lives, and if that's what they say to do, that's what they do, and it's very hard to consider that you might have not gotten the best advice. You just don't want to hear it, and I understand that too. I think that's something we all have to take into consideration. On just one last thing because I want you to, if not tonight, consider. Let's talk about this question. There is a blogger, a journalist named John Rappaport, who was in on the AIDS issue early on. He wrote one of the first books on AIDS, debunking the idea that it was a virus. And he then is now joined, I believe, by by RFK Jr. In confirming what a lot of people have been saying for a long time, and that is that this is not a virus. This is a symptom, a syndrome, a collection of problems that have been bundled together with and clinical observations and lifestyle issues and things like that. But I don't want to get into what it is, but I do think we now know what it isn't. It isn't something that is generated by a virus, and there's just an incredible tragedy over the use of medications to try to treat it as a virus when it's not, and the disasters that happened. We'd be here all night if we tried to explore that. But now, what he is now saying the same thing about the current pandemic. And that is where he parts company in terms of analyzing the problem with Dr. McCulloch, because Dr. McCulloch is not challenging the existence of the virus. And
True.
And Rappaport most certainly is. So therein, I think we can do some interesting discovery if we dig into the difference between those two analyses. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. What I've done, now I've seen what other people do that works out well, is to sometimes list out what the outcomes are and what let's say if there is some conspiracy behind just Mother Nature going berserk, okay? If there's some conspiracy involved in this, and I'm not saying there is, because I totally agree with the Department of Homeland Security. I don't challenge trusted sources, but if there was some a conspiracy behind it, what would be the end goal? What would someone be hoping to achieve? So if you then look at the end goal, right?
Yeah.
Start there and then start working your way back. If the end goal, let's just say the end goal was to have sell a lot of jab juice.
No,
right?
no, no, that's not the end goal.
Well, let's just say it was, all right? If the end goal, that's just one, all right? And I'm not saying it is, because I believe the Department of Homeland Security. I believe trusted sources only. So this is just speculative science fiction stuff. But if the end goal was to sell more jab juice, well, that would mean that the actual existence of the virus is not needed to do that. All you need is for people to believe it
Right.
exists.
Voila.
So now,
And there's Snohomish County man coming in,
Yeah.
on this, over the ocean, I'm going to Snohomish. I want to write the song, it's going to sound like Secret Agent Man. Snohomish County man.
there's been so much media and so much film, John, about this myth of pathogens just getting more and more deadlier. They're just evolving, and they want to do nothing but kill people and kill animals and kill and I suspect that is actually not true. Now, while lots of bacteria in the world, no doubt, that will eat things, when it's given the right opportunity. This narrative of just ever increasing deadly pathogens, and it doesn't balance out. And sometimes some of the worst things that we've seen being introduced as far as human health goes ultimately goes away, because you know what, our immune systems work, and we find new ways to rebalance. Is there an HIV virus? Yes, there is. There absolutely undeniably is. Are there multiple variants of it? Yeah, there's a lot of different variants. Are some correlated with lots of illnesses in the population where they are found? Yes. But here's the challenge, okay? And this is what some of the best HIV researchers have shown. They studied individuals who worked in situations where you would imagine HIV to be the worst it could possibly be. Areas that had high HIV rates, and then studying people who were sex workers in those areas. And time again, they wound up not dying of HIV. They actually wound up having less and less virulent forms of it, because voila, the virus, which causes less problems ultimately of it, those people will be healthier and live longer and actually reward the virus for causing less problems. So is it possible that there have been really bad versions of HIV? There have been. The thing is this myth of it just keeps getting more deadly, and it just keeps spreading, and everyone's going to die unless we can take the medicine. The human immune system and how we work, as far how real herd immunity works, constantly fights against that. The fact that people's immune systems work really is the biggest hurdle to get over. So through media, through movies, books, obviously controlling the having a heavy hand on the education system, you can create belief systems that are constantly reinforced year after year in movies and video games, etc. And then you just need a way to be able to introduce the pathogen at certain points, and ensure that the fear machine gets going. There were some people who were initially exposed to SARS-CoV-2, for example. The initial form got pretty darn sick, but it doesn't seem to continue to spread that well. And that's the problem, is that immune systems and herd immunity and natural de-attenuation of viruses, which are unnatural, just keeps on happening. But the end goal isn't to create new pathogens that are going to spread all over the world and make people dependent upon them. That's difficult and risky, and you can't do it anyways. The end goal is to get people to submit to the medicine, to submit to the regimen, and to believe that the new medicine actually worked. That's the end goal. So you need just enough of this, a little bit of that. Were there new illnesses? Were there illnesses being potentially distributed in food or drinking water? Is this whole concept of shedding real? There is evidence that there was. Were some people made sick by the therapy itself? Yes, they were. All these things combined with a whole lot of confusion and inconsistent messaging from the health institutes, and it's exactly what you need to get to where you want to be. If you're one of those owners of the World Bank, and your vision is, a future of genetic experimentation, genetic data mining, regular jabination with new technology, extreme health surveillance and all of that. So you have to be careful. And I think I get a little worried about some, not RFK Jr. necessarily, but some disinformation out there on saying that there is no HIV, for example, because
Well, what did he say? I thought he said it was that AIDS was not a virus, but it was a collection of symptoms.
Well, that's also a true statement. So AIDS is a disease.
So Rappaport is basically taking that same model and applying it to COVID.
Yeah, that's a safe way of saying it. Chronic fatigue syndrome, for example, there's no chronic fatigue syndrome virus. It's a disease. Alzheimer's. There's no Alzheimer's virus or bacteria. It's a disease. It's a degenerative condition which can be caused, we believe, by several different things or combinations of things. So there's the disease, and then there's causal agents. And it's really hard to find situations where there's a strong one-to-one relationship. Like anthrax poisoning might be one, but in many cases, it's usually a combination of things. Yeah.
You're familiar with fibromyalgia?
Yes. That's another.
It's a diagnosis that's based basically on complaints, and there's like a number of points. Like if you have pain in both elbows and in both shoulders and two knees and your hips, then and it's the same kind of pain, then you've got this diagnosis. And that's of course not going to be caused by anything except for trauma or age, but it becomes its own. It has its own DX numbers in the book, right? And so that becomes a whole therapy regime comes out of that, and a whole lot of opiate and opioid drugs are sold to treat that condition. This I think it's still an open question. I'm not convinced either way, and so I would encourage folks to take a look at what Peter is said in this.
Peter Duesberg. Peter Duesberg was a big, very much believed that there was never causality made between the virus and AIDS, and it's a complicated statement because there's multiple versions of the virus. Is AIDS caused exclusively by the virus? Are there people that have breakdowns of immune system without the most virulent forms of HIV? Yes. So it's it gets really the truth table, right, of all the columns and all the rows is actually quite large. It's not just virus, yes, no, AIDS, yes, no, right? There's all of these other conditions. Like those puzzles. You ever do those puzzles, those logic puzzles? Joe sat on the bench second to Steve, and Steve's birthday was not July, or something like that. And you have to come up with all the combinations.
That was not my strong point, Mark. No. Hey, I do have something fun though. Christy Leibel has been a great participant in our chat for a long time, and she wanted to follow up on your comments about Mao, and it just so happens that I was studying that very issue. Whose side was Mao on, and is there a connection between the Western financial system and Mao? And here's an article that I'm going to
I said,
put up there.
I think I said Rao, Rao.
Oh, I thought you meant Mao Zedong, the
Um,
Chinese, because we were
you
talking
know,
about Russia and
I
China.
might have spoken about, I might have mentioned him before. I did in some Yang Land stuff.
All right, let
Uh,
me just put this up there for fun then. Um,
Please,
Here you are. Okay, so this was sent to me by one of my very kind subscribers over in Germany, and it's in German, but it's oh, I'm gonna push the translate button. Um, oh wait, where's the translate button? Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, but uh, what it is, it's a very good essay, and if you go to it at Regenauer Press, Regenauer.press, you can push a button and it'll translate it into English for you. But anyway, Christy, this is the answer to your question. The answer is yes. Mao had strong ties with Yale and financing for his communist movement in China, very much traceable into the Western banking system. More details I will share some night when I want to do a whole show on that, because I do think that when you consider how did communist China somehow come to be without some foreign financing, and then what is really happened? Is it been the old uh, American empire that was centered around Douglas MacArthur and the the Flying Tigers getting taken over um, by the communist system, which is really an ally of the Western banking system based in London. That's the kind of thing that you find in this article, Christy, and I'm fascinated with that question. It was something that you were talking about, Mark. So anyway, sorry I couldn't find the translate button.
no, that's fine.
But that's fun, isn't it?
It is fun. So, do you think the West used China, or did China actually wind up succeeding in using the West?
Right
And I
now,
don't have the answer, but
I,
that's the
I
question.
I think Henry Kissinger is behind all of this. Whoever he works for the big boys, and
Oh yeah.
he's a servitor just like everybody else, but he's the top one that we can see, and he has the answer to all of your questions, but because he set it up. But I'm sure that when they set up the financing of all our businesses going into China to take advantage of cheap labor and cheap resources, when he set all that up, he set it up in such a way, that that he can pull it back. That everything. If you're a smart Western banker, then whenever you give something out like that, you have a string that you can pull, right? You say, and take it
Hmm.
back. And I believe there's financing agreements and rigmarole that ties all this stuff together behind the scenes. And I'd be very surprised if suddenly President Xi decided to announce that they were completely independent and they're going to go on their own. No, the rise of their currency has been the direct result of the Western investments, and the people that made those investments are not going to risk them. So they're controlling in some way what happens in China. That's my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but you asked, so that's my 2 cents worth.
Well, wouldn't you're closing out here almost, but wouldn't that suggest that they really aren't as much of a breakaway, if you will, from the old European empire and banking system that some say they are, if they have taken all that capital. Because if you were a leader in China, you would have seen clearly all this interest over the last 50, 60 years in making investments in China. Do you just say no because you don't want to have the string attached? Or do you say, bring it on in? We'll take the intellectual property. We'll take the investments. We'll take the support and infrastructure and everything else. Knowing that at some point you need to be ready to cut over. That if it does get pulled out from under you, can you then survive it? Or are you just going to allow yourself to be set up? Again, these are really big issues, topics. Yeah.
This is the other side of it. See, that's my opinion. Now, if you asked Harley Schlanger or the LaRouche folks their opinion, they'd take the other side. They would say this, that China, unlike the United States, has central banking that benefits China. It's not an external bank that's getting money by printing demand notes, our will pay to the bearer on demand, pieces of paper. That they have a central banking system in which when they collect taxes, they earn interest on investments, they have built wealth. And whereas we are trillions and trillions of dollars in debt, they are on the plus side. And they've done that, in order to do just what you said, because they knew they were going to have to get to a point where they could just go off on their own. Now, can they do that now? I don't think they're there yet. I think that the clear weight is still with the Western banking system as between us and China. But now go back and look at what's happening in Ukraine, and Russia's drawing a line there. So if our government, our Western banking system loses the leverage that it has, by playing both of them against each other, or just being a pain in the neck until you get more money from somebody, right? Because this is what I just hate about it, is that once we got rid of Glass-Steagall, then all the speculative money comes into the real banking system, and you know how it is. It's like gambling is a big problem, and it's a very bad addiction. You talk about your big elite people and what kind of things that they do. They're not all good. Some of them are willing to gamble with millions and millions of dollars, and people's lives are become less and less valuable to them. But my
That's true.
opinion, Mark, I really do think it is about some type of identification system that is being subtly given in with these vaccines. If they can do that, then they can have solid financing. They can say, here's how many people we got with this condition. Here's how many people that are starting to have skin cancer. Here's how many people that are going to die before they're 70. And that kind of thing, so that the insurance companies are very, very happy. And then if they need to do some culling, then they can do it very subtly, because they'll know that, oh, this one, if he gets too much ultraviolet light, then that could be it for him. So let's make sure he doesn't go into the tanning salon accidentally one day.
Oh,
That kind of crap is just, that's science fiction, where you started tonight. Science fiction is there is see, they're they're very much into the occult. And so
religion.
what science fiction is their predictive programming for us. They're
It's the
saying
religion.
they
Yeah.
can turn, no, but it's like their karma. It's like, if they have to tell us what they're going to do before they do it, or else they'll have bad karma. So like now we know that they're going to do all of these horrible things that have been written about by Asimov and Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke, and all of these, and Dune, for instance, all of these really creepy ones. And then stuff starts to happen, and they say, well, see, we told you,
It's possible.
Simpsons.
It, it's It's
You
yes.
live in Massachusetts. Where is Simpsons? Is Springfield? Isn't that Massachusetts? Springfield at the Simpsons?
Yes. Springfield, Massachusetts. It's about an hour and a half from here.
So you're going to get that dome, right? You're going to be the ones with the dome. This the Simpsons dome.
It's not a very big city actually. What is it? 150, 100 maybe, including the metro area, maybe 200,000.
Uh-huh.
They have a huge amusement park there. At least you got that. You got Six Flags. It's not really in the city, but it's close by.
Mark, I kept you a little bit late, and I appreciate it. Thanks so much for being with me tonight. We had a kind of a
Oh,
freewheeling discussion, which it really gives me a lot of pleasure, and I look forward to the
that's
next one.
good. It's good. We can't take things too seriously. Take care,
That's
everyone.
right. Thank you, my friend. Good night, everyone.